Welcome to Love and Speak the Truth, a podcast with Sister B and friends. Might get messy, sacred to secular. Don't judge. All voices will be heard here. So listen up. We're going to explore the human experience through the lens of wisdom sharing and faith, with a worldview that might shock you, move you, even downright inspire you. Today, I welcome Dr. Katrina Wright, who inspires us with her honesty, commitment, and unabashed relationship with and dependence on her loving God. She is my friend and our teacher today. I believe we will be inspired by her words, her life, and her faith. So much welcome, Katrina. I'm so happy that you've decided to come on the show and give the audience a little taste of your bright light. Um, I just want to welcome you today. You've been such a great friend, and I would like to share your wisdom with the audience today on Love and Speak the Truth. So, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm honored that you would choose me to talk to.
Yes, well, you're wonderful. So we're going to get to it. Um, why don't you just maybe start by sharing a little bit about yourself and more than what we read in the bio or what we read in the introduction. It might be good for just to hear from your own voice what is something you just like to share about your life.
So I am the youngest of 8 children to two wonderful parents who have now passed. I have 3 children myself. I was a single mom for a big part of their lives when they were coming up, the two of them anyway. My mom helped me tremendously, helped me raise the kids while I was in medical school. Um, and then I went to Loyola Medical School and met Sister Brenda there. Went to Loyola for my residency and then University of Chicago for my fellowship in nephrology. So I've been in Northwest Indiana for the past 20 years. I work as a nephrologist and I wear many hats at work. I am a medical director and on the board and do office, group practice, hospital rounds. So my day typically is starting off at the dialysis unit, then going to the hospital, then going to the office, and then sometimes back to the hospital.
I want to back you up just a little bit.
Yes.
Because I'd like you to share a little bit about mom and dad, a little bit about them, because somehow to get this full picture of my friend Katrina Wright, they need to get a little picture of mom and dad. So you set us on the path of getting to know
Mm.
Erica, first of all.
So, Mama was a beautiful, beautiful German woman. Uh, she just had a very positive outlook and had to tell a lot of stories. She met my dad while he was serving in the service in Germany, and she loved sweets. But when she left Germany, my grandmother, my aunt said, "Our cake eater is gone."
Mm.
And so I told her I was going to put that on her tombstone. Loved her sweets. Um, she loved her children dearly and was adored by all of her children, especially my older brother, Milton, who really just spent the last 10 years of her life caring for her, at the expense of caring for himself. But just she was very, very close to us, always very encouraging to me, telling me like she was so impressed by things that I did, which in retrospect, she probably wasn't that impressed, but just really always built me up, always built me up. You can do so many things. You're so good at this. You're such a good doctor. Um, And then, like I said, and helped me raise my 2 kids, which was, um, a a big deal.
Mhm, mhm. And your dad?
My dad, was, probably a middle child in, um about 16 children. My grandmother has 16 children. Grew up in Greenwood, Mississippi, and both my parents were tremendously faith-filled people and gave us that gift. But specifically, my father was a man of faith and gave that to us. Um, Taught me Bible scriptures, just so many examples in his life where he would, he got his car stolen and he said, I know I'm getting that car back. And he just was certain that, God wouldn't um, let him down. And he got his car back. And
Mhm,
the
mhm,
same thing with my mom. I suffered an illness uh, probably 20 years ago, right after my third child was born. And I thought I was going to die. And I said, Mama, I'm go will you please just take care of the kids if I die? And she was like, God didn't give you this beautiful family to take you away from it. You're not going anywhere. And I'm here.
mhm.
So both of them very faith filled people and gave us that gift.
So your mom was a great Catholic woman, and
Mhm,
from her roots, she lived her Catholicism, with great devotion, and your dad, the Reverend Wright, was
mhm.
a amazing Baptist preacher.
That's right.
Even go with me to my father's house was, something that I could see him jumping around and and singing to the crowd. Uh, how did that combination, there's so much multi influence in your family, the multi influence of ethnicity and race and faith and ideas about the world and about life in general.
I would say that though culturally my parents were very different, it was the same underlying message that love permeate permeates. Um, and so, you know, I uh, I think about my mom and my dad, had 2 very different religious practices, but they inherently believe the same thing that God, loves us and God would always take care of us. They practiced it differently, but it was the same message for all of the children, and we said prayers before meals, and I remember my dad being on his knees praying before we went to bed, and so, prayer was a big part of our lives, though culturally, we practiced it differently. All of the children were raised Catholic. We all went to Catholic schools.
Hmm. So, in thinking about our conversation earlier, I wanted to go off in the direction of what your patients, the people that you serve some very, very sick people. And I'd like to kind of dig into some of the things that they've taught you because I think you're a seeker. I think you ask good questions and you're looking for answers along the way.
I think what I know and what I guess have learned from my patients is that God is the ultimate healer. Like patients are healed through God working through me. I essentially have nothing. I'm the vessel. You know what I mean? And for real, I take my job seriously. I sit at the computer and I look at all the data. And when I'm with the patients, I'm present and I look in their eyes and I hold their hands. I mean, it's a gift. It is a gift for me. But I think the biggest thing for me is that I pray that God will just use me as His healer.
Mm,
Because without God there is no healing. That's how I feel anyway.
mm,
I think um So many times I am healed or saved by my patients more than I heal them.
Mhm.
I I remember there was a young doctor who was dying of cancer, and he was just beautiful. And his mom was in the room, and his wife was in the room, and they did not like each other. And I had to come in the room and every day deal with one of them or both of them, and they had different wishes for this man that they loved. And one day he looked at me and he held my hand, and I was, trying to take care of him, and he just looked at me and he said, "You are so beautiful. Know that you are so beautiful."
Mm.
And he didn't mean my physical appearance at all. I just carry that with me that, in caring, in giving to your patients, that's what you want to give. You don't want to give this outer part. You want to work your hardest, do everything that you can so that things are better for them.
Mhm.
And I think the way to do that is to give from in here and not out here.
Yes, that's a real experience I have with you. I think one of the things that strikes me is that you're very forgiving. Uh, the loving comes with a forgiving heart, a heart that's willing to reconcile the brokenness that we see in each other. And when
Mm,
you see that brokenness, you sometimes recognize that's not the total person. That's just a piece of the person. Hmm?
yeah,
So how did you come by this ability to see um, through the pain and the suffering, move to the compassion and look toward forgiveness, helping the person to overcome whatever it is that burdens them?
yeah. Um, First and foremost, it was like the unrelenting or unquestionable foundation I got from my parents and from my siblings. So they there were 8 children and 2 parents in a two-bedroom apartment. So we were so intimate, and um at the root of that was love. You know what I mean? That we all loved each other. And I think that in general, like no matter what you have or you don't have, we had each other, and it was just thick with love. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, and then as far as being non-judgmental or compassionate, I just think that I need that. I try to give people what I need. I am going through this life as a flawed person. I try not to make mistakes for my patients. Sometimes it happens. You know what I mean? I really do try my best.
Mhm.
But even at our best, we fail or we don't get the outcome we want. My flaws are so obvious to me that who am I in a position to judge anybody when I make
Mhm.
mistakes every day? So I think
Mhm.
that's where it comes from. That
Mhm.
we're all imperfect. We are perfect in our imperfection, for real. And that's what you s- you see when you see a patient. Like I know they're sick, and patients curse me out or say, "Don't come in my room." No, I'm not talking to you, and I don't take it personally. I mean, they're sick. They just and they want to get back to their normal life of being normal and walking around and healthy, and they can't, and they get, you know upset by that, and they take it out on people, but it has nothing to do with me. I remember this one lady at my dialysis unit. Um, she was leaving the dialysis unit because she wasn't happy with anything, happy with my care, happy with the nurses, and she said something like, "It was nice knowing you." And I said authentically, I said, "I wish I could say the same for you.
Mhm.
It's been a hard relationship." And because of that authenticity for real, she didn't leave.
Mhm.
And changed our relationship.
Mm,
Me, I wasn't mean about it. I just said, I wish I could say the same, but it was hard knowing you.
mhm, mhm.
And from that, she didn't leave.
Yeah, I think the thing that we both agree on is that the sharing of the vulnerability, that something is hard, something is askew between us, to be able to share that and acknowledge that we're not where we want to be,
Mhm.
helps us to get over a place of blocked communication, um, um, relationship that stops us from being authentically who we are. I'm wondering if you could reflect with us a little bit on how you navigate struggles happening in your work, your life, and maybe even beyond your life, but the struggles that you see going on in the world, um, people around you. Um, I think doctors, in particular, physicians, see things in a unique way.
So I think um, my perspective is it's all good. Even in the struggle, there is goodness. Um, and you can replace that word goodness with love or with God. Those to me are interchangeable. So that in a patient, I have a patient now who's dying of pancreatic cancer. And I asked my partner, I haven't done anything special over the weekend with him, but I formed a relationship with him. And typically we switch patients on Monday. And I asked my partner, let me just stay with him because he trusts me. And, and I've been spending time explaining all the stuff. And if you asked him, I don't think this patient would say there was anything special about our relationship. But there is um, uh, just a connection that he and I have
Mhm,
now, and that at some point I have to tell him that we can't do anything further, and I
mhm,
have that before the end of the week because then we'll switch. And I wanted it to be me to say that to him because we've gone through so much together.
mhm,
In that, telling him that we can't do anything further, in the midst of that, in that is God, is love, is goodness. And even though that seems impossible, it's an impossibility that's founded in love.
mhm.
And that for real, that is the premise of everything, of almost every struggle, that no matter the outcome, it is knowing that you're not in it alone.
What
I
if you
tell
don't believe in God? What if you don't believe in, you get to a point in your life where everything is going wrong. You don't have hope. You didn't come up with this great sense of of a loving presence of God that may just not be in your ability to see. So, what happens to the person? How does that person navigate their own healing, their own wellness, if they don't have a faith of any kind? And does
mhm.
it have to be the same kind of faith that perhaps you or I had?
I could look at you, Brenda, and say, even if I didn't believe in God, I could not ignore your goodness. And goodness is interchangeable with God. And I could not ignore your love. And that love is God. So if a person doesn't believe in God, they would see my goodness
Mhm,
and I see their goodness. Who cares what you call it? I know it's God. I know it's love. I know all those are the same thing. But who cares what they call it?
mm,
And if they can't at that point see goodness in the situations, I mean, I've been there where I can't see goodness in the situation, then that's our calling to be that for them,
mhm.
to be to be that for them.
Yeah, that is kind of what we believe, that we are the presence of God in the world. We are the ones. There's no other hands or heart, uh, but those right in front of people. And it's very Ignatian to see God in all things. But I think when you live it out of that space of being conscious of the being the presence of God to people, I think that's one of the things that I admire about you. You have that ability to see beyond the surface and look at the person even in their at their weakest time and still say they have something to offer and share that with them. You know, because sometimes we're too close to see the goodness that we have in ourselves.
Mhm.
Sometimes we don't recognize it. Maybe we've been told, or maybe we've been um, consensual in accepting all the things that people heap on us, right, about who we are. And we don't believe essentially that we're good and we're worthy and we're graced. Mm.
And that we are essentially goodness or God at our core, an expression of God.
Mhm,
And sometimes it's so hard to see that when, especially like when things aren't going our way or depression or with illness or something like that, there is almost this hopelessness. So I went to University of Chicago and I felt like everybody at that place was so smart, so much smarter than me. And I thought, my God, what on earth do I have to offer compared to these mega brilliant people?
mhm,
And for me, it's like God, like we were all in a room and there was a X-ray up, and I was in the room with all the fellows, and they asked about the X-ray, and I saw it right away. I saw the issue right away, and that kind of just showed me, nobody else in the room saw it but me, and that kind of said, okay, you should be here.
mhm,
And the other thing is that I think that I'm willing, like you talked about being vulnerable. I'm willing to show that part of me and be connected to a patient that way. Um, I guess the technical or the book side to kind of just say, this is the illness, this is our experience with it, this is what we're going to do. And it's not that I don't give people data, I do give them data, but I think I give them more of myself than data.
mhm. Um, maybe we just take a little shift and talk about you are a real fitness expert and you're an athlete and you believe in physical strength, emotional strength,
Hmm.
spiritual strength. You have a real God-centered worldview. Um, what does this sense of being holistic in your life, the body as temple, you eat right. I know that being fit and being very active is just a clearing for you. It's the way, it's what you live and breathe.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe you share a little bit about how you came to understand how those things fit together: the physical, the spiritual, the emotional.
Yeah. So I would say the first thing is that, like, when God calls you to do something, you need to listen to it. And I believe that the word desire means of God, is that God is speaking to you. And so I love to move. I need to move every day. And I like to move fast, and I like to move to rhythm, and I like to move with other people. It's not really about, winning a race or something like that. That's lovely. But really is, I like to move. And I think that comes from God. I mean, that's something in me that tells me that's what you need to be your best person. Be the best person you could be. And I think spiritually, I say that too. Like, how can I not pray every day and take care of myself? And I can give my best to my family and my friends and my patients when I'm at my best. So it really is kind of like a circle that I gotta take care of me. I gotta pray every day. I gotta do my gratitude journal. I gotta do some meditating and do the take care of me the best that I can so I can give my patients what they deserve, or I can give my kids what they deserve. I know with me that um it just all ties in. Like if I have sugar, I don't sleep well, and if I don't sleep well, then I don't perform well. And so I just know that I need to eat healthy to take, I mean, this body is the vehicle, right?
Hmm.
Vehicle for God to express himself, herself into this world. And it's my obligation to take care of it the best that I can so that I can be the best vehicle. And for real, that's the impetus.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a basic principle, isn't it? You can only give if you have that something to give, so you
Yeah.
first have to take care of yourself. Um i i wonder about that. I have my own um kind of notions, because I'm probably the opposite. I'm not good at saying no to sugar. I'm not good at saying I'm going to go after a long day's work. I'm going to go for, what is it that you do, a 10-mile jog? Oh, I have to go for a run. It never comes to my mind. And then I wonder how that coincides with my effort to give of myself to others. I think everything is connected, as you said, but there's some basic truth in that. First, I must care for myself, take care of it, something precious, see myself as precious
Hmm.
in order to give that preciousness, that love of self becomes love of other, isn't it?
Uh,
Um, so that's something that we can all learn, and I think you've got it down in spades.
um, so for me, I don't think it comes so much from love of self as much as love of God and love of others, and feeling this obligation to show up for people.
But
And
what makes you make that distinction? Because loving yourself is loving God, isn't it? I think first you know, there's something that that finding the divine in yourself, because
Mhm,
there is that divine spark that resides within each one of us. Once you know what that dynamic is, that you cannot be separated from the love of God. You are
mhm,
the love of God, right?
mhm.
Um, so loving oneself first and in the best possible way is loving others and God in the best possible way. No?
I haven't I haven't come to that yet. I'm still, trying to get that balance. I was in a bad, bad relation for 20 plus years, and my whole being in that relationship was, I can be loving. I can be loving. Even if he doesn't deserve to be loving, I can be loving. I can be loving. And I would pray, God, please just get into my body or be me and help me to be loving. And the last thing I said in that relationship, one of the last things I said to this person was, I spent 20 plus years loving you, trying to love you, trying to do my best to love you. And now it's time for me to love myself. And um, it's, I guess it's a fine line. And I practice it every day. So I had to look at ways of how I love myself. So now every day, anytime you come to my house, you're going to see a big giant salad in my refrigerator. And it's going to have strawberries and corn and all these little things. But that's Katrina loving Katrina.
Hmm.
I'll do, I'll do everything for everybody else, but that's just one way I love myself.
Hmm.
And, like I said, exercising and praying, those are the other ways I love myself. I think you have one life, you have one day, you have to make the most of this one day. You have to live every day, like do the best, really do the best you can every single day. And the best I can do for me is means like, how can I be loving to people? How can I be Christ to others? And it got a little confusing, especially in that significant relationship, because I kept trying to be Christ for someone else, and I forgot in that I wasn't loving myself. Things that I accepted was not being loving to me. There's this song, and it says, um, "Be the girl you love." And so for me, that means love myself. Don't accept stuff from people that you don't deserve. Don't,
Mhm,
be loving to yourself. Be the girl you love. Be the best person you can be. Be loving. Love yourself first. Be the
mhm,
girl you love,
mhm,
and then be able to love other people. And I was not the girl I loved for so many years.
mhm, mhm. Amen to that. I love to hear that because I think there's different ways of loving, but I think sometimes we women put ourselves last.
Mhm,
We think
mhm,
of our partners, husbands, wives, or whatever. We think of our children and our grandchildren. We think of our jobs. We think of everything else except ourselves. And I think that's when we lose the most important contact because we have to start with ourselves.
mhm,
You know, the commandment is love yourself, right? And love
mhm.
your neighbor and love God. And all of that Trinity can't be broken. If one is severed, then it's
Yeah,
whole thing is incomplete. The relationship is broken. The covenant relationship that we're invited to in our faith is to love one another, to love ourselves, and love our God.
God, yeah.
And I think we do a lot of labeling when that comes because then what we do to it, we we get all jaded in the dogmas of our religions,
Mhm,
and we make religious rules become the thing that divides us. But ultimately, it's simple and it's basic. Um,
mhm,
I find that you live that quite well, Katrina, and I think you've grown in it, especially when you had to make a decision about yourself. And it
mhm.
was a life or death decision, wasn't it?
It really was. It was a lot, and I struggled with that. I prayed year after year. Every anniversary, God, please, if this isn't meant for me to be in it, let me out of it. Let me out of it. Show me a sign. Show me a sign that it's okay to get out of it. I love you. I want to honor you. I want to honor your commandments. Let me out of it. Let me out of it if I can get out of it. And at some point, I think I think the answer was there all along. It was just me having enough courage to say, okay. And it didn't matter what other people thought. It was about me and
Who
the
made
matter.
that decision?
Yeah, me.
You had
Yeah,
to make that decision.
right. That's right.
Mhm.
God wasn't judging me. And what brought me to that decision was, I had two deaths in 1 year. My dad loved me without a doubt. And he died in 2019. And what I said to myself, if Vati, that's the German word for father, as we call dad, Vati. If I asked Vati, should I stay in this relationship, as much as Vati loved me and as much as a Christian that he was and a Bible knowing and just faith based person, he would have told me, run away as fast as you can. Girl, you don't owe nobody anything. Get out of it. I'm certain my dad would have said that to me.
Mhm.
What I said is, if my dad, I know how much he loved me, but that is infinitely smaller than the amount that God loves me. And so if my dad could forgive me and let me out of it,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
God would let me go. God
Yes.
would let me do it. And
Mhm.
it was the death of my father. And I was not living my best life. And so that's what I think got me out of it. I said, if my dad loves me this much and he would let me out of it, God loves me a gazillion times more, and He would say, be okay to let me out of it.
Mhm. And this is the message you would give to any other woman, any other person who found themselves stuck in a relationship where they were not caring for themselves, taking care of themselves, and paying attention. You would say you have the freedom to make a choice for life.
And you got to love yourself. What does loving yourself look like?
Hmm.
And for me, I accepted I wasn't the girl that I loved. I wasn't being the best person that I could be by accepting what this person was giving me. And that was it.
Hmm.
It is the intricate dance of loving yourself enough so that you are able to love other people. And sometimes loving yourself enough is saying to your patient, I didn't like knowing you.
Oh, Katrina, that's beautiful. Listen, the name of this podcast and the meaning of this title, "Love and Speak the Truth." I heard a lot of truth coming from you, your truth
Mhm.
that so many of us can resonate with. Well, maybe there's something you would want to ask me, just in fairness, so we you don't feel it as if it's one sided.
So I guess when I got out of that relationship, I struggled so much with what does it look like to love myself? What does it look like for you to love yourself?
Oh yes, I think for me, the thing is, it's all about being a friend to myself, uh, accepting my fragilities, my shadow side. I have a lot of people that they they love me, and sometimes I say to myself, "Why do you love me? You know, why do you think so highly of me?" Sometimes I can't get over it, but there's a way that acceptance of my limitations, um, knowing that I have to be Brenda. I think at the end of the day, and I believe this seriously, I know that as a sister, I'm supposed to be doing a whole lot more God talk, and you do a lot more God talk than I do. Um, and that's okay. I just express it in a little bit of a different way. But for me, God is not very far away from the Brenda. And
Mhm.
every single time I recognize that that's God's presence in me, then I see the beauty. Then I see the goodness. Then I see those things that, you know, if it's not the salad, it's at least the attempt at it, you know.
Mhm.
Think at the end of the day, when all is said and done, and we meet our maker, however that looks, if we're going into the stars and becoming stardust again, what however that looks, that judgment will be a God that says, Brenda, why weren't you Brenda?
Mhm.
To be able to see, I have different gifts than you. I have a different makeup than anybody else, but accepting the person that I am. And that's an everyday struggle.
Mhm.
And
I don't know. So loving yourself means the way that you love yourself is just being authentically Brenda every day.
mhm, mhm,
Mm,
yes,
mhm,
accepting all the limitations that come with
mhm,
being Brenda. And, you have to work at it. I think I have to work at using my gifts and seeing them authentically. Um, a lot of times, you know this as well as I do. I'd like to be more like you.
and I
That's
like
when
to be more like you.
And that's when I had to turn it around and said, I love the beauty in Katrina, but she's Katrina
Mm,
and I'm
mm,
Brenda. And
mhm.
I hope that everybody would see that
Yeah.
somehow and accept that somehow. And I think we would be nicer to each other to say,
Yeah.
you're beautiful. My goodness, you are. And I talk to some of the most amazing people and I recognize, wow, I wish I had that gift. Or wow, isn't he or she great at that? You know, but I'm I can't be good at that. I can't be great at that, but I can be great at being me.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know.
Mhm.
So yeah. Anyway, my one last question as we go into the wrap up is, what is your truth? One truth.
I I think I would say it 3 different ways. Like, one, I have a, a little saying down on my window downstairs, and it has a picture of a butterfly, and it says, "Where there is great love, there are always miracles." And then another quote that I have hanging in my bedroom. Dr. King says that um, uh, ultimately the answer to every human problem is love. Is love.
Say again?
Um, Ultimately, the answer to every human problem is love. The solution to every human problem is love, however that looks. Um, and that another way to say it is, so where there's great love, there's always miracles. The solution to every problem is love. The, the way I think I live it is that God is in the midst. Love is in the midst of everything. And even though there are hard times or suffering or whatever that it is, underneath it all, the matrix of it all is love, is God.
Well, my friend, thank you for sharing your life, your faith, your struggles, and your love with me and with all the people who are listening to this podcast. Love and speak the truth. I think you've done it, and you've shared that truth that is the most important. That underneath it all, there is love.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think you know how I just adore you. I love you, and I'm so honored that you would ask me to be a part of this.
And I love
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. And now for the wrap up. You have just had a human experience from a spiritual being. We have so much to learn. So go forth to love and speak the truth. Ad majorem Dei gloriam. A couple of announcements. Don't forget to rate and follow us on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We are on Facebook at Love Speak Truth, and visit our website at www.lovespeaktruth.org. For a few credits, when all is said and done, I give thanks and credit for sponsors, producers, and contributors who made this podcast possible. Mega shout out to IBVM Region Leadership, Megan Butel, Jennifer Schmitz, Carol Benaziak, Laurenti Wright for the keyboard music, the late Sister Maria Beer IBVM for her composition of the music Women Bearing Witness. It takes a village, folks. Thanks for listening to Love Speak Truth.